The history of NASCAR is full of heated rivalries, and that won't change anytime soon. This is a great part of the sport, and fans want their driver to race against everybody else. Many drivers dislike each other more and more because they have been competing against each other for a long time. If someone hurts you in one race, you might try to get back at them in the next race at 150 miles per hour. In the 65 years that NASCAR has been around, there have been so many great rivalries that it's almost impossible to pick the best one. Number 1. Jimmy Spencer is racing against Kurt Busch. When Kurt Busch first started racing in NASCAR, he was known as a reckless racer, which made many of his competitors like Jimmy Spencer mad. Spencer, a Pennsylvanian racer from the old school, did very well in modified cars, but had trouble in the Cup Series. On the other hand, Busch was a young upstart from Las Vegas. Some of Busch and Spencer's first races in the Winston Cup Series were in Phoenix in 2001, Bristol in the spring of 2002, where Busch won his first Cup race, and Indianapolis in the summer of the same year. In 2003, Spencer met Busch on the way to the garage and hit him in the nose. This is just one part of a long-running rivalry between the two men. Number 2. Toyota versus Jack Roush. Since 2007, when Toyota announced that it would be racing in the Sprint Cup Series, team owner Jack Roush has been the company's main rival. Roush hated Toyota so much that when the Japanese car company started racing in the Cup Series, he never missed a chance to make fun of it. Roush either stopped criticizing Toyota as much or started to like the company more as time went on. In what may be a funny turn of events, two of Roush's longtime drivers have left the team to drive Toyotas for a rival team. When Matt Kenseth joined Joe Gibbs Racing in 2013, he won 7 races, which was the most he had ever won in a single season. Carl Edwards chose to leave Roush Fenway Racing at the end of the 2014 racing season. He is now working with Matt Kenseth at JGR. Even funnier was the fact that Edwards, Roush, and Ford beat Toyota at Sonoma Raceway in June to win the Toyota Save Mart 350. Number 3. The race between Carl Edwards and Brad Keselowski. Carl Edwards and Brad Keselowski used to race against each other in NASCAR, but now that they are both well-known drivers, they rarely race against each other. In 2009, as they were getting close to the finish line at Talladega, Keselowski turned around and pushed Edwards into the wall. The next year, Edwards took Keselowski's damaged race car back to Atlanta. They fought again at the Nationwide Series at Gateway the same year, but now they're just friendly rivals. Maybe they both realized that the only way to deal with the other side was to become like them. Number 4. Cale Yarborough and Dale Earnhardt race against Darrell Waltrip. Dale Earnhardt and Cale Yarborough, two of Darrell Waltrip's most dangerous competitors, were always giving him trouble. Yarborough called Waltrip Jaws because of how badly he talked about other people and how much he talked up his own skills. Yarborough's team owner, Junior Johnson, replaced him with Michael Waltrip. This made Yarborough and Waltrip hate each other even more. Earnhardt and Waltrip had one of the most fierce rivalries between drivers. Even though they respected each other on the track, they seemed to both like and dislike each other. Earnhardt and Waltrip used to fight, but as time went on, they let the past go. Number 5. Wood Brothers Racing and Petty Enterprises were in a race against each other. The competition between Petty Enterprises and Wood Brothers Racing was kind of like the Hatfields and the McCoys, but in a good way. Even though they were fierce competitors on the track, the two teams didn't dislike each other, but when they weren't working, they were the best friends. Also, these groups weren't robots that were as cold as ice. Since they were privately owned, the people who ran them highly valued morality and quality. On the race course, the two teams often traded paint, but if one needed help, the other would do anything to assist. Number 6. Bobby and Donnie Allison versus Cale Yarborough. Cale Yarborough seemed to be always in a race with both Donnie Allison and Bobby Allison, who is Donnie's brother. During the 1979 Daytona 500, these three drivers got into what is likely the most well-known fight in NASCAR history. In the first ever live broadcast of a NASCAR race, Donnie Allison was ahead of Cale Yarborough with only one lap left. Since snow and ice covered more than half of the country, the spectators were stuck inside. When Yarborough finally caught up with him, they started crashing their cars into each other. In the end, they ran into each other and ended up in the infield, where a fight broke out. Bobby ran to help his brother Donnie when he saw that he was in trouble. The whole thing was shown on TV as it happened, but Richard Petty didn't care about the chaos and still won the race. Number 7. Dale Earnhardt versus the Daytona 500. Dale Earnhardt felt both happy and sad about the Daytona 500. Even though he liked the Great American Race a lot, it had nothing for him. It did everything it could to stop him from winning the NASCAR title. Earnhardt could have written a book about all the ways he could have lost the 500, such as getting into an accident, having a mechanical problem, running out of gas, etc. Earnhardt had tried to win the Daytona 500 19 times before 1998, but he had never been able to do it. He only won one other time in his life. Earnhardt was killed during the last lap of the Daytona 500 in 2001. Number 8. Ford and Chevrolet. In NASCAR, the blue oval and the bow tie have been competitors for a long time. Many race fans bought the same model of car as their favorite driver to show their support and show that they were just as good or better than the other drivers. Ford and Chevrolet have never been so competitive against each other. Before them, there were automakers like Pontiac, Oldsmobile, Dodge, Buick, Chrysler, and even Toyota, but they all came close to Ford and Chevy. Since the beginning of NASCAR, the top manufacturers have been involved, so every year they also have the Manufacturers' Championship. Number 9. Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt. After Jeff Gordon's first race in the NASCAR Cup Series in 1993, at the end of 1992, Earnhardt hated him on the track. Earnhardt was mad at Gordon because he thought Gordon got where he was in NASCAR too easily, while Earnhardt had worked hard and then some to get where he was. Last but not least, the sport's first outlaw, Kurt Busch, raced against the next big thing in the sport, a young American who wore a white hat. In 1995, the Brickyard 400 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was one of the best times to see how much they hated each other. Earnhardt said that he was the first person to win the race at the Brickyard. When Earnhardt found out that Gordon had won the first 400 a year earlier, he repeated with a sly smile that he was the first guy to win. Gordon and those who backed him were furious about this. The fierce competition between Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt likely led to NASCAR's popularity boom in the late 1990s and early 2000s. People liked what they said, they liked the competition, and no matter who they voted for, they made it clear that the race was between two very different candidates. People who didn't support either Gordon or Earnhardt were thought to be neutral. All of a sudden, everything became very clear, simple, and easy to understand. After Earnhardt died, it came out that the Intimidator and Gordon had become good friends in his last years. Number 10. David Pearson and Richard Petty. Petty versus Pearson was the best example of a race between two drivers who didn't like each other. Almost every time they ran together on the track, it was a fight to the death. Pearson was the reason why Petty only won 200 races in NASCAR. If Petty hadn't been racing, Pearson would have won more than 105 races on his own. He might have been the king of NASCAR if not for Petty. Also, in 63 of their wins against each other, they came in first and second. Every lap looked like a battle between Petty and Pearson, and the rest of the field was quickly forgotten. They were friendly racers who didn't hurt each other too badly very often. On the other hand, it's hard to think of two men who tried to fight each other as much as Petty and Pearson did. Which rivalries have you seen that were the most dangerous? Tell us in the comments. Like the video and subscribe for more videos like this.